Hello and welcome to this tutorial on Ganon speed strats. So I'm going to start this tutorial by talking about the different components of the Ganon fight, which you can see over here under the About the Fight heading. But some of this might be familiar to you if you're an experienced speedrunner, but you might also learn some new things as well. So I wouldn't just skip ahead. If you are truly interested in all the components of the fight, you might learn something. And then I'm going to go into the speed strats, which it's going to be covering the most optimal strats that I am aware of that might actually be the most optimal that exist, depending on which weapons you have, whether or not you have silver O's, whether or not you're playing swordless mode and the randomizer or whatever. But to start this video off, we're just going to look at the different phases of the Ganon fight. So you start off, obviously, in the first phase, and in the first phase, Ganon throws his trident at you. And the trident mechanics are kind of interesting, so it kind of loops away from Ganon, and then the trident homes in on you a little bit. So if I'm standing up here, you can see the trident kind of follows me. What's really interesting about this, other than just like knowing that's how it works for dodging the trident, is that when Ganon catches the trident is when he begins the next part of the cycle. So this is really important for speedrunning strats, because if I move in such a way that he's going to catch the trident earlier, like there, then I'm not going to have as many times to get hits in on him. Versus if I pull the trident maybe a bit further away. That was a bad example because I was both far away and the trident went to him quicker. But I can kind of juke the trident a little bit so that I have more times to get slashes in on him. What's interesting about this phase is that its start and end points are a little bit weird. So I'm going to get his health down a little bit. He's now one hit away from the point at which phase 2 will start. I have the enemy health display on right here on the HUD. So if you want to turn that on in the practice hack, you just go down to features, go to enemy HP. This is a really good way to learn about the Ganon fight. Anyway, once he gets down to 208 HP is when he will be able to start the next phase, but he won't start it right away. So I'll show you a couple of different scenarios here of how that might start. So if I were to slash him, like let's say now, he's still spinning his trident. I might expect the fire bats to start, which would be the beginning of phase 2, but he's going to still throw the trident at me, and that's because I didn't quite slash him early enough. So the beginning of the trigger for when he will decide whether or not he's doing a phase 1 or phase 2 attack is when he looks one direction, then he looks the other, and when he looks center again, that's when he makes the decision. So if I can slash him before he looks center, then I can start phase 2. So now phase 2 has begun, and it's fire bats. The fire bats will always start, they'll always appear in a circle to the top right of Ganon if he's facing down, or they'll appear to the top left of Ganon if he's facing up, like in this scenario. Normally you can dash through the fire bats when they're at their widest angle like that. I think I just got unlucky there. So yeah, so it's fire bats. An interesting thing to know about this fire bats pattern is where the fire bats begin to appear, like if you're thinking about a dial on a clock, the part on the circle that they begin to appear and the first fire bat that will follow you is determined by what we call the arc variable. So this variable is used in other boss fights, for example, the Armos Knights fight. I'm not exactly sure if it's used in any other fights, but I know for sure the Armos fight is one of them. And depending on when you end that fight, the arc variable will be set to a different value. I'm only mentioning this now because if you're playing on the prac hack, and that's how you're learning this Ganon fight is via the practice hack, know that the arc variable is set to a very specific value, and that value does not vary if you're loading the Ganon preset. So it'll always be the same arc variable value. So if you're practicing it and you're kind of getting used to where the fire bats might appear in order to plan your dodges, then just know that that can vary depending on what the arc variable is. That arc variable is usually set in an NMG run based off of when you end the Ice Armos fight, but if you're playing Rando, you might not have fought Armos Knights at all. So it could be at its vanilla default value as well in that case. So fire bats are happening. Our next goal for Ganon's HP is to get him down to 180. So I'm just going to sword slash him a bit to get him close. And this beginning of the phase 3 is a lot more forgiving than the beginning of the phase 1. It doesn't really matter when I slash him. If I slash him now, if I slash him later, it doesn't matter. He's going to warp at least once to start the next phase. And for some reason, I didn't get it there. just going to soak some hits to get a 1 cycle. Oh, I said 180. It's 160. Duh. That's why I didn't get it. Okay, now we're at 160. But I didn't slash him quick enough to end the phase. I don't think you can slash him quick enough. If he's warped still in phase 2, then he will do the whole phase 2 attack before he goes on to phase 3. So now we're in phase 3, and that is he warps a number of times, and then he does the fire bats. So in the vanilla Link to the Past, I believe that the decision whether or not to warp is pretty much 50-50. Like, either he will warp or he won't. And as far as I know, he could warp an infinite number of times, but of course the probability of that happening is like 1 over infinity, or something even less likely than that. So you're not going to get him warping an infinite number of times, but you can get really unlucky with the Ganon warps, which can really delay the fight, like we're seeing right here. What you need to do to advance the game is you need to slash him. And it doesn't matter how many times you slash him. If you look at his health value, you can see it's 100. So let me just slash him twice. 3 times even. He's down to 88, but it jumps back up to 100. So it resets his health value. You're not going to be able to do anything interesting by slashing him a bunch of times. And if you see people do this, it's just for fun, really. It doesn't do anything to slash him additional times. Each time you do slash him, it advances the platform on to breaking a little bit further. An interesting thing to know is that if you don't slash him fast enough, he might shoot out the fire bats. So you want to slash him as early as possible to avoid the fire bat circle, but he will actually destroy the floor and continue on to the next phase. So you haven't lost any time in that way, other than the time delay between when he could have stopped like slightly earlier or whatever. While the 4th set of tiles is disappearing is when he begins phase 4. And phase 4 is just he shoots fire bats out in your general direction, and then he warps somewhere else and then shoots fire bats out again. He doesn't warp and warp and warp like he does in phase 3. He won't warp times without attacking you, so that's good to know. But the other part of this fight, of course, is that you can only damage him while the torches are both lit. So I've let both of the torches become unlit here, just so I can demonstrate. If you have 1 torch lit, obviously you can't hit him, but once you have 2 torches lit, then you're good to start damaging him. So back to phase 1. So we're still at the tail end of phase 1. He's got 1 more hit left, and I just want to talk about damage classes. So I was using the Tempered Sword, and Tempered Sword takes 12 slashes or 6 spins. So of course spins doing twice the amount of damage as a slash does, or some combination of slashes and spins. It is possible to get double spins, so if he warps somewhere like he is now, or he's up against a wall, I could release a spin here and get 2 spin hits on him because of the recoil, so that can help speed up the fight as well. But yeah, Tempered Sword does class 3 damage, or a spin does class 4 damage. If I had a Golden Sword, then that does class 4 damage, so it's the same as a Tempered Spin. But if I spin with the Golden Sword, you can see it still just did 8 HP of damage. It didn't do additional damage. So if you know your Butter Sword mechanics, that shouldn't be a surprise to you. Butter Sword spins don't do more damage than Butter Sword slashes. So there's no real reason to spin unless you wanted to get an easy double because he warped against the edge of a wall or something. But in that case, it would probably be just as easy to do sword slashes anyway. And then the final damage class that I want to talk about is Master Sword. So a Master Sword slash is not strong enough to hit Ganon. It's just not powerful enough on its own. So luckily, if you do a spin, that's class 3 damage, which is Tempered Sword. So you can see that 4 HP was just drained from Ganon. Unfortunately, this is the only way to damage Ganon with a Master Sword, which means that you need to employ difficult techniques in order to hit him, which we'll be going over when I cover the 2-in-1 Master Sword speed strats. So now I've started phase 4 here, and I want to show you a very important glitch. This is maybe the first thing that you should learn as far as the Ganon fight is concerned when you're getting into speedrunning, and that is the torch glitch. Now, it is possible to make it so that the right torch never becomes unlit, and the way you do that is by lighting the left torch before the right one can go out. I might get there a little too late to do it with the lamp, but no, I got it in time. So I just did that by running over there and spamming it with the lamp as soon as I saw the last tile was about to disappear, because that's the trigger for this lamp becoming unlit. And now when this torch wears out, this torch will never wear out. So I will always be able to see where Ganon is, and most importantly, I only have to light 1 torch in order to hit him, which can be good for both speed and magic conservation. It is possible to do the torch glitch with the fire rod as well. It just requires really good timing. So let's try to do that here. So there it is. You can do the whole fight this way with just the fire rod, like lighting the torch whenever it becomes unlit and slashing Ganon in between. And this can be one of the fastest and sometimes necessary ways to do the fight. The last thing I want to go over here is the element that RNG plays in the Ganon fight. So there's a few different aspects of RNG. Some of them are consistent and anticipatable, and you can develop your speedrunning strats around this element of RNG, and then the others are just like plain dumb luck and randomness. So for phases 1 and 2, Ganon has a few different set spaces that he can warp to. In this particular case, he warped to the far right location, but he could have warped in 3 different other locations. In phase 2, it's a similar idea. Let's see if we can get him into phase 2 real quick here. So I'm not going to actually end phase 2 because I don't want to. I want to show that he can warp other locations here. Let's not die. There's not really much RNG that's happening with the fire bats. Yeah, where he decided to warp there was part of the RNG. I think he could have warped to a few different locations. And now that he's not actually in phase. He's not in the next phase yet because I suck apparently. There we go. Now he's ready to go to the next phase. The real aspect of RNG that can be really frustrating is phase 3. So Ganon can warp like potentially an infinite number of times, I believe. So there's one additional warp, and then he stopped, which is good. That's relatively nice RNG. 0 warps is of course the best. But he can warp and just keep warping, right? I want to mention that in the vanilla game, of course, this can be like a huge aspect of whether or not you gain or lose time. So far, he's been very kind on the warps. But in the randomizer, you're going to have a set pattern of warps that's predetermined by the seed. So all this means is that it works generally the same as the vanilla warps will, except for that you are assured that your opponent is going to have the same number of warps as you are. So that's kind of good to know. This is not true if you were to save and quit in the middle of the fight, or if you were to fall down a pit or die. Then there would be a different set of RNG that you would then find, but it's good to know that at least your opponent, if you get like 8 warps or whatever, your opponent's going to get 8 warps too. And the final thing I want to talk about with RNG here is that as far as the practice hack is concerned, this is all controllable. So if I go into the Pract Hack menu and I go to RNG control, I can control, first of all, how many warps Ganon has, like either random, this is the vanilla behavior, I don't want him to warp at all for phase 3, or I want him to just keep warping forever, I believe is what this one does. I don't know, I've never selected it. But you can also control where Ganon will warp to for the second cycle of phase 1, or rather the first cycle of phase 1. It's hard to count, but anyway, where he's going to warp to the very first time. Far left, bottom right, far right. This is just good to know if you need to practice different strats for like the different optimal speedrun strats, because they vary depending on where Ganon warps to. So we're on phase 4 of Ganon, and we have our silver arrows, and we want to be able to kill him now. We've done the torch glitch just for fun, and yeah, so how do we do that? Well, if you remember from your childhood days, you just, slash him and then shoot some arrows into him. But you can see there that if you're quick enough and you get a good RNG pattern, you can actually get more than 1 hit into him. So up to a 4 hit is possible, like with this RNG, for example. If I was on his right, or his left side, and shooting him to the right, I would have had to be there before I just now got there. But the idea is that you can keep shooting him until he reaches the edge of a pit, at which point he will be able to warp away. And you need to hit the arrows quickly, otherwise he will continue his warp. Which is why when you see people do this strat, and let me just give myself some more arrows here because I'm going to run out, you often see people shoot and move towards him to reduce the time, and I can't fire as quickly here against the wall because, your bow, you can't fire your bow again until your last arrow has left the screen. So if I was actually firing these into Ganon, then my arrows would be going away quicker. So if you want to get doubles or triples, then the key is you want to be on the outside side of Ganon. So if Ganon was warping here, I'd want to be on the outside of him, like over here. You also might take advantage of this situation by choosing to light the torch again, which freezes him in spot, somewhere that's more kind of central on the pattern, versus if he warps somewhere that's like on the very edge, like here, you know, you're out of luck, you're only going to get a single. Like here, so I interrupted him with a fire rod shot, and you know, I could have gotten more than one arrow into him there. So let me just show that real quick here, what that looks like when I'm actually going for the fight itself. I'm gonna wait for the torch to go away. And dodge fire bats poorly. So yeah, that was a triple. That's pretty much as good as you can do, unless Ganon warps right at the very edge, as I showed you before, and you can shoot him here to get a quad, but it's very difficult tech, although it is possible. But what do you do in Phase 4 of the fight if you don't have the silver arrows? And this is probably the most important speed tech to learn after learning the torch glitch, is the Silverless fight. So this is particularly useful in an NMG run where you don't pick up the silver arrows, which would be like any NMG run except for 100%, unless you really want the safety of the silver arrows. And of course it's very important in rando as well, so you don't have to go try to hunt down the silver arrows. And it's not that hard, especially if you have a decent sword. So tempered sword or butter sword will make the fight last just the same length of time. A master sword is twice as long, and we'll get to that later in the tutorial video, because that has some interesting idiosyncrasies, but or just some interesting applications of speed tech. So it's really important when you do a silverless fight to get the torch glitch. It's not actually required if you have the tempered and butter sword. You can do it with without the torch glitch, although you're going to be a little bit more hard-pressed to get the fight done. But you especially could do it if you had magic refills or you had half magic or something like that. But in any case, if you know you're doing the silverless fight, just really prioritize getting the torch glitch would be my advice. Okay, so the idea here is that while Ganon is in the middle of a warp, like he's about to warp away and he hasn't yet, you just want to release a sword spin. And you need to do that 12 times. Whether you have tempered sword or butter sword, it does the same class of damage, like class 4 damage essentially. So it's going to be 12 spins that you need to release. And the reason that you spin on Ganon is because your spin has an extended duration of a hitbox. So you can see that animation is really long versus your sword slash. It isn't a single frame, your sword slash. There is a duration of the animation here, but it's much more brief. So you could actually hit him with a sword slash too, like there, if you were incredibly good. And I'm not trying to say I'm incredibly good. Most of the time I would have missed it. I expected to miss it there. So you can hit him with a sword slash. It's just much more difficult, which is why you know, people sword spin instead, is because it's like a guaranteed hit essentially. If he was in a pattern that was really hard to reach him, like here, you know, you might have no choice but to go for a sword slash there. But yeah, just know that you should really be going for sword spins instead of sword slashes, unless you're just trying to show off. So that's the basics of how to do the silverless fight. You need to spin, release a spin, basically right as he's warping. And it's one frame, I believe, that he can take damage. And it's the frame in between where he's not moving at all and where he's actually warping away. So the other part of this is how to maximize the number of hits that you get in. With whatever item that you're using, whether it's the lamp or the fire rod, it is possible to get 3 hits in per torch lane. So I'm just going to demonstrate that here. So there's a triple. It's harder to do it depending on the RNG, and I use the lamp here, but certain RNGs I might need to use the fire rod. Of course, that drains magic much more quickly, but let's see if I can get a bad RNG here to show off. This is decent RNG. Wait for one more cycle. Okay, if he had warped like top right, for instance, then it wouldn't be possible for me to get. Here we go. I didn't even make it then. You can see that the timer's really tight. You have to have really good timing and anticipation in order to be able to get the triple. Most of the time, you're going to be getting doubles. So if you light the torch at an inopportune time, then you're not going to be able to get a triple. You have to be pretty precise in order to get a triple. So like right now, I shouldn't go for it because I know that the torch is not going to light. I didn't get the timing right. So speaking of the timing, how do you know what the timing is and if you've got it? The idea is you want to light the torch as soon as Ganon stops from his warp, and that'll allow you to get a triple. In the pattern that he was at, I couldn't get a triple, so it triple necessitates that I hit Ganon like right as he's on the first cycle that he's warping away. So I'm not going to get it with the lamp this pattern, so I'm going to wait, light the torch. As soon as he stops, there's 1, 2, 3. So that's the idea, but if you like light the torch in the middle of his warp, or if you were to light the torch when he's already stopped, then he'll like put his cape up and you really won't be able to get a spin. You might be able to still get a spin on that final frame before he warps, but it's much harder to get it otherwise. So I really recommend that you practice this fight if you are getting into randomizer, for example, or NMG. This is a very important fight to know how to do, this Silverless strat. So let's go backwards to the beginning of the fight and look at how you get a 1-in-1 gold sword. And just to explain what 1+1 or 1-in-1 means, we're always talking about phases 1 and 2. So it's how many cycles of phase 1 and how many cycles of phase 2 on Ganon that you get. In the case of 1-in-1, it means 1 cycle phase 1 and 1 cycle phase 2. So those are possible if you have the gold sword or tempered sword, and as far as we know, or maybe as far as I know, it's not possible to do that with the master sword or if you're doing the hammer swordless fight in randomizer. But I'll show you starting with the gold sword because obviously it's a bit easier. So gold sword slashes do class 4 damage. So actually I'm going to select here. You can see Ganon has 247 health. I've already slashed him once. Let's see what it is after I hit him again. 239. So it does 8 points of damage. I believe we're trying to get him down to 208 health, which is what will start the next phase. So you can't get him any lower than that. Like you can't get ahead in the fight. You just need to get him down to that specific health value. So that'll take 6 gold sword slashes to get him down to that value. Doing class 4 damage. This is pretty easy to do with the gold sword. You just need to be consistent. So you just whack him a bunch. So there's 5 hits already, and he just needs 1 more hit, and he will be down to the health that he needs to be for the next phase. The important thing about the starts and ends of the phases here is that the next phase has a chance to begin at a very specific time, and I'll show you what that looks like here. So watch his head. He looks left, he looks right, he looks left again, and then right after this, right after he looks left, is the time at which he will determine, am I going to be in phase 1 still, or am I going to be in phase 2? And that's when the game checks his health value. So if I'm able to slash him before he looks center again, then he won't be in phase 1 still. But you can see because he threw his trident, he's still in phase 1. So this is what it looks like, you know, if I hit him earlier. So now he's doing the fire bats, which is what we want to see. So phase 1 is pretty simple. You just whack him a bunch. Phase 2, you could get fancy. You could do other things, like you could stand over here, which is similar to a strat I'm about to show you for a tempered sword. You just need to get 6 hits in him, and you have a ton of time to do it in because of the fire bats. I'm already there. You can see I'm going for damage value 160, or for his HP value of being 160. So I'm already there. I don't need to hit him anymore. But honestly, the simplest thing is if you have the boots, you can just stand inside the circle of fire bats here and dash and not run into him. I say simple and then I do a Ganon hug, and you just dash and then dash cancel, so you don't dash through him and hit the fire bats. And you just do that 6 times. And it's possible to do it a lot faster than I'm doing it here. But so now that we know the basics of how the different phases work for the 1-on-1 gold sword, we're ready to tackle the tempered sword fight, which is the same basic concept as the gold sword fight, getting Ganon's damage value to 208 to start phase 2, and then 160 to start phase 3 at specific times as early as possible. But now we have the added challenge of doing class 3 damage with our slashes instead of class 4. We can do class 4 damage with our spins, and we are going to take advantage of that. So let's just hop down in the fight, and I'll show you how this gets started here. So you always want to try to get a slash in before the text box appears. And know that the text box is always 3 messages. And this is true whether you're playing the vanilla game, at least on the Japanese version. I don't know if it's true in the US or European versions. But it's also true in the randomizer. So the randomizer has randomized text boxes, but it'll always be 3 text boxes. So that's really important for if you have certain strats memorized, so you know exactly when the text box is going to clear and you don't accidentally dash or slash, wasting time when you're not supposed to. It's also important to know that when you're on the final text box message, you can clear that using any button on your controller. Excuse me. So one thing I like to do is I like to clear that by holding up, which will allow me to get closer to Ganon in case I'm not far away. And then I'm going to slash immediately to get my second slash in and third slash in. So now I've gotten 3 slashes in. He's down to 243. So that's like a hit and a half from the gold sword. So we still have quite a ways to go. You could keep slashing him here to get up to 5 slashes, but that's not the most optimal strategy. I could spin, which would also be equivalent to 2 more slashes being the same as 5 slashes. But what I really want is to get a double spin. So the way that Ganon's iframes work is that they don't last long enough after getting hit, so that they provide him immunity for the entire spin animation duration, which means that if you're at a spot like wedged against a wall, wherein your spin could hit him twice, then you will get two spin hits in off of 1 single spin. So the problem is that Ganon's not against the edge of a wall here at the beginning of a fight. However, you do collide with his hammer, and you can collide with your spin against, or sorry, not his hammer, his trident. So we do a trident spin, and that was just a barely double here. So there's a couple of different ways that you might do this spin. I think I faced down just then, if I remember correctly, which is one of the ways I like the most, but you can also like face left. And you just need to wedge yourself in between him and the trident. And you also have to have good timing. This is definitely a strat you need to practice if you want to get consistent at it. So I'm just going to press select here. I know that the trident is about to hit, and I also haven't finished charging up my spin. So I need to be really particular on the timing. This trident is already gone. At this moment, ideally, I need to be moving upward to get into position in between Ganon and his trident. I might be actually too far to the right here. And I was too slow there on the uptake, but let's try this again. So oops, 1, 2. So like you need to be really right in between his trident and him. So you need to be very familiar with Ganon's hitbox, and Ganon's hitbox is really funny. Like you would think I'm colliding with him right there, but I'm not. So that's a safe spot to be when I release the trident spin. Yeah. And there, I think I got hit by the trident. Okay, so that's part 1 of this 2-in-1, or sorry, 1-in-1 tempered sword fight, which is the NMG strat. So let's just get back to where we were. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hits, basically, that we just got against him. So now we've got 7 hits against him. We need to get 5 more. Am I counting right? Yes, we need to get 5 more to get to that magical 208 number. So it's not the straightest, it's not the easiest thing in the world to get this. Let me make a save state here. And I just barely missed it. You can see he threw the trident, and if you were watching the health value and looking at which direction his head faced, you would see that I was like just barely too late. So yeah, I got it that time. I think I even got an extra hit in. I can't remember. This is a very weird save state spot. 9, 10, 11, 12. I like to count aloud. You might not need to. So I should have gone for another slash immediately here because I've started phase 2. I didn't because I just wanted to make sure that I got it and for demonstrative purposes. But how you get in these final slashes and where your positioning wants to be will depend on the RNG, so where Ganon warps. In this case, he's warped what we call top right. It's not actually at the top, but it's the topmost place that he will warp. There's only 4 locations that he can warp. Top right, top left, bottom left. And they each have different strats wherein you want to get in your last hits. from phase 1 and where you need to be for phase 2. And they're related, of course. Let's see if I can get the phase 2 fight here. So yeah, top right, you want to get an 8 slashes if you can. 7 can be fine too, it's still possible. Get an 8 slashes, then you want to make sure that you're up against the wall. So I hold down after this, and the reason is because I'm just about to hookshot to the left to get iframes. But if I'm too far north, when I do that, I'm going to accidentally hookshot on the torch, and then the 1 cycle phase 2 is not going to be possible. So I hookshot left to get the iframes. 8, 9, 10, 11, hookshot left again, 12. So that's the fight, and now I have ample time to dodge these fire bats. What I often do actually is I'll often go north to be in the middle of the fire bats while they're flying around, in order to to dodge them a little bit more easily. But you can do whatever you want there, obviously. So I'm just going to show you all the different patterns here in the strats. And if you're playing on the prac hack, it's really good to know that you can control the Ganon RNG. So if you want specific warps, then you can set that here. This is where he warps on phase 3. So that's a different RNG setting. So we've already seen, we call it far right, not top right. We've already seen far right. Let's take a look at bottom right. So same start here. You need to get all 7 of those spins in. So now I already know where he's going to warp. So I know where I need to be to set up for this thing. However, you need to react much more immediately to where Ganon's starting to warp, and you need to react pretty quickly. So I get to cheat a little bit because I know where I need to be, where he's going to warp. But normally I would have to maybe wait a half second longer to see where he's going to warp to. So now what I'm going to do is I'm already lined up, and I might have missed the first sword slash because I'm spending time lining up and explaining it here. But I want to line up such that when I slash Ganon, it's going to eject me onto the torch. And I just barely missed it there. The number of slashes I need. You can see that I was kind of getting ejected a little bit south of the torch, so I had to press a diagonal left up in order to get back into position to slash Ganon in such a way that would still hit me against the torch. If I didn't press left up and I just pressed left, then it would shoot me past the torch, and I wouldn't get as much momentum cancellation, and I wouldn't be able to get all of my hits in. Let's count 7. That's 7 hits. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so now you can see Ganon's facing left still, and he has a 208 health value, so we know that we're going to get into phase 2. Obviously, we're not going to be able to see Ganon's health when you're actually doing the fight in a run. This is just because we're using the prac hack, but I do recommend practicing with seeing his health value when you're first learning the fight, because it can be really informative. And even when you really know the fight really well, it can still be really informative to practice with the health. But in a normal run, you're just going to have to count. So we're in a good position now to do the 1 cycle phase 2. Make a save state here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So similar idea with the far right pattern. I'm just using the hookshot in specific places in order to get iframes. There I got 8 slashes in. Again, it is doable if you only get 7 slashes in before that first hookshot, but it's a bit more tight and maybe more likely you're going to get hit by the fire bats. The big difference being, the way that I canceled my momentum against this torch, just like I did in the first phase, so that I could get as many hits in as possible. And that positioning is the hardest part to master about this particular pattern. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the far left RNG, and so Ganon's going to warp kind of just a little bit above and to the right of that torch. And again, I'm cheating a little bit because I know where he's going to go, but it is really good to do this in the prac hack and just make sure you know all the patterns. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's how you get all 12 hits in. It's very easy. You just need to be south of him and then slash him a bunch, right? It's nothing to that. And we can see that I'm good because I've gotten 12 hits in while he's still facing left. Now I'm just going to hit him the same way, from the same place, and I think I've already messed it up. 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I've already messed it up. I panicked. 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I'm going to come over here and bonk 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So when you bonk, you have iframes, which is why I'm able to get inside of the ring of fire bats here. It's important to note that the way I was slashing him, it ejects me against the wall, but if I were to slash him like now, for instance, while the fire bats are in the tightest circle around him, then I would be ejected against them and take damage. Where it's possible anyway. I guess I wasn't in that particular moment because where the fire bats were. So just know that that's a danger, and if you didn't finish the pattern fast enough, to the point where the fire bats were not in the correct place, then you might want to do a dash like this. It's much safer. It's slower than the other methods and a bit more risky if you Ganon hug. But yeah, that's a good backup strat. Okay, so now I'm set up to do the bottom left warp. One thing that's important to know about this is that this is the easiest pattern to get a glitched Ganon warp in, and I'll try to demonstrate what that looks like here, but it's not obviously totally in my control. So there we go, I got it. You can see he's facing downward. That's different than all the other patterns that we've seen. When he's facing downward, you know that you've glitched him out. And he glitches out basically whenever Ganon intercepts the trident before he can finish his warp. And it's very close. Like it's not as simple as the intersect crossing the hitbox, the path of his hitbox. Like it has to touch his hand or something. So, but the thing is with this particular Ganon pattern, if you move immediately diagonal left, you can see he's even in a different position now. It's very likely that you'll get this glitched warp pattern. And the big thing about this is that you're not going to be able to get in enough slashes before he goes to the next warp phase. So that's the main reason you don't want this. But another reason is that it changes where the fire bats are going to appear. So instead of the fire bats appearing top left, they're going to appear top right if you were able to get enough slashes in, which I'm not even sure is possible. So we don't want that. And instead what I do is I kind of try to walk straight down and then I move left. And that will juke his trident a little bit and allow me to get in as much hits as I can. So I've already started the next phase, but let me just come back here a little bit. See, I'm glitching him out now because I'm cutting the corner a little bit too close. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, because I missed that first slash. I missed it. This is a very hard pattern for me anyway. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so I've gotten my 12 slashes in, and we should be good for the next phase. Yeah, okay, we're good. So now the thing is very similar to other patterns. We're going to use this torch to cancel our momentum. So, but we don't have as much time to do it because as soon as the fire bats started to appear, they're going to appear right where we need to be, to be canceled our momentum against the torch. So we need to stop slashing at that point. So we have 1, 2, 3 slashes before that happens. And because I got a bad start there, I got hit. I think I'm in a bad position actually. Yeah, I think I landed in a bad spot to even get those in. So I'll just soak the hit for now so we can continue the fight. So you hit him 3 times, but you need 12 more hits, right? So what you can do is dash a couple of times while the fire bats are still here. Then you know that the fire bats are going to expand outward, so I can move back into position down at this torch. You can see they're already kind of expanding. And now I can hit him again, canceling my momentum against the torch. So I've gotten 5 slashes in, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That 11th hit was not really necessary. That was a little bit dangerous. The fire bat almost hit me against the torch. You can get 2 dashes into him. You have plenty of time here, although it's more likely you're going to get hit by the fire bats. So now you're inside the fire bat circle, but as I told you before, sometimes it's actually easier to dodge the fire bats from within the circle. So that's fine that we're inside the circle when this pattern ends. So this is the Master Sword Ganon fight, and this is the dread of many a runner who plays Link to the Past. It's important to know if you play low percent in the vanilla category, speedrun category, because you won't have Tempered Sword. And it's also important to know in randomizer, and good to know that the randomizer can actually, it is possible to defeat Ganon with just the Master Sword. So you don't need the other swords available in order to defeat him. If you're playing normal game modes, of course, you will always have all 4 swords available to you, but if you're playing like an expert mode or something, then you might only have the Master Sword. Well, you will only have the Master Sword when you face Ganon. So it can be important to know. It can be important to know even in normal game modes, though, because like the tempered sword, the butter sword might be out there, but they might be in locations that aren't easy to get to. And if you know the Master Sword Ganon fight, then you might be able to gain minutes over your opponent if they don't know it or don't want to do it. So the Master Sword fight is kind of difficult in that it takes twice as long, you know, on top of the tempered sword fight, because you need to spin Ganon in order to hurt him. So spins will do tempered sword slash damage, so that means you're going to have to hit him 12 times with a Master Sword spin. And you can get like good RNG, like here he's up against a wall, so I was able to get a double spin in, so that would count it as two hits. So now I'm at 4 hits, but if I try to slash him, it's not going to work because the damage value is too low. So there's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's play it safe here. I don't want to get hit by this trident. 10. Let's get a double in. 11, 12. Oh, no, I missed it because I got interrupted by a trident. 12. So I think that was like 7 warps, I want to say. That was like 7 cycles. I don't know. I can't count. For me to get all 12 hits in. The best that I usually see it with the strat that I was kind of using there, which is just the spin against him when you can, is like I might see like a 3 or 4 cycle from like a really good speedrunner. But this is not actually the best we can do. And this is just phase 1, you know. So let's take a look at phase 2 with normal strats, and then I'll show you the optimal strats here. Let's refill my health here and cheat. So there's 1, 2, just barely as I got hit by the fire bats. 3, and I might be able to get a 4th spin in if I was super daring, but I'm not going to try it. See if I can get a double in. Nope. And I've lost count, so I'm just going to stop counting. I don't know why I held my sword charge there. You can tell I'm not very good at this strat because I don't actually normally do this one, because it's not optimal, and I learned the optimal one. So I've got one more spin, and ideally I want to get this spin in before he can end this cycle completely. So he'll start the next cycle right away. Oh, I'm sorry, I had 2 more spins in. I really can't count. Okay, I'm pretty sure that was like a 5 cycle phase 2. But again, I really can't count. So that's really long, right? Like that's a 7 and 5. And if you're looking over on the sidebar, you can see that 2 and 1 is the optimal. So how is that possible? So it's possible using this. That's right, the Cane of Samaria you can use against Ganon. So the idea is that we can create a wall wherever we need it, so that when we spin and recoil against Ganon, we'll recoil against this block. However, it's not quite that simple, because if I were to just release a spin and take the recoil, I don't know if this enemy will recoil me, but let's find out if this is a good demonstration. Nope, he doesn't recoil me. But if I were to just release my spin and not press anything else on the controller after the spin, I would actually phase through the Samaria block and end up on the other side. So it's not enough to just like release a spin and just treat it like a wall. You have to have directional inputs in order to cancel your momentum. And how you do that is you press a directional input towards the block. And it doesn't have to be directly towards the block. It can be a diagonal like this. You can see my movement is totally arrested even though I'm pressing up right. It's not going to make me go up unless I press up. In fact, diagonal might even be a better way to cancel your momentum. Anyway, so you need to press against the block basically in order to cancel your momentum. So let me actually refresh my magic here before I start this, and I'm going to make a save state here because the fight begins like right away. What you need to do is you need to hold left as you're falling down the pit, because you need to be facing left immediately. And on the very first frame that I can, the earliest frame that I possibly can do it, I need to slash my sword and begin a sword charge. So let's see what that looks like. And I failed because I was pressing a diagonal input. And then I'm moving up left, and then I put down a Samaria block. I happened to get the very first frame. I believe this is the very earliest frame that you can get both the spin charge and the Samaria block down. It's not absolutely necessary that you do this. You do need to get it early though. But I can tell that I've got it first frame because my Samaria block is there, so I know I pressed the Y button on the right time. And also because you can kind of see there's an orange animation. It's getting covered a bit by the Samaria block, but that's the animation that appears when you finished your sword charge. So now I'm in the correct positioning. Let me make a save state here. And all I need to do is release my spin, so I'm not going to press any inputs other than the inputs required to clear the text box, and then cancel my momentum against the Samaria block. And then I'm going to start another charge, release it again. So I've already gotten 4 hits in against him by getting 2 double spin hits. And that's the whole tech here. We're going to try to get as many double spin hits as I can. The movement from here is really tight. I'm not going to show you all the RNGs because it would take forever to talk about all the possibilities with where he will warp to. But what I generally do is, now that I've gotten my 2 double spins in, I'm going to move right, I'm going to destroy my block, then I'm going to move down and start my sword charge then, and then get into position where I need to be for wherever he ends up warping to. And it's that sequence of movements and where I've decided to place my Samaria block here just comes from lots and lots of trial and test. So I developed this strat and it took me like 10 hours to get it down to the point where it was semi-consistent. And this is just where I found is the best place to get the spins in to avoid the trident and make sure the timing works out. So I've gotten my 2 double spins in here and I'm going to unpause. I kind of lost a little bit of time there. Okay, I just barely got all 6 spins in. So that's the maximum amount of double spins in that you can get is, you know, the 2 at the start and then the 3 down there. So now I've hit him 10 times. I just need to hit him twice more in order for the phase to be over. That was really close. I almost missed it. It is possible to get 5 and like for him to be warping during the point at which you would be getting the second hit in during the final double spin in. And 4 is much more common. There's backup strats I'm going to show you for what happens if you miss the 2 cycle phase 1. But let's see if I can just get the 2 cycle phase 1 this time. So I need to cancel my block, get in position, and I got it. So you can see he's facing, in this case, he's facing a different direction because he's facing down. His head is looking a different direction to end this phase 1 at. But you can see his health value is at 208, and he's looking to a direction. So I know I've gotten it in time. So now what I need to do is I need to prepare immediately for the second phase. I'm going to make another save state here in case I mess up. I've already phased through my block. That's not good because I didn't cancel my momentum. So I'm just going to place my... Hold on a second. Yeah, this is a bad save state. Okay, I've had to reset the state here because I accidentally, in all of my save state business, I messed up the strat. So I had to reset. Now we're in the same position again, and I can show you the phase 2. I still need to get in the final double spin here in order to start phase 2. But the position of where I start this is really, really important for being able to do phase 2 in a single cycle. Also the timing too. I need to get this really quickly. And that's happened. I don't know exactly why that happens. I think it has to do with your alignment on the tile. But I haven't figured that out yet. If somebody finds out why you phase through the block even though you're pressing the right directional inputs, then that would be great. Okay, so now I can actually start the phase 2 fight. And what's important to note here is that I'm going to get a lot of lag, and I'm already getting it. So it kind of throws off your rhythm a little bit, and that's one of the hardest parts about this fight. So I've gotten 10 double spins in, and now I really should have switched to the cape earlier, but this is the cape is required for the 1 cycle phase 2 in almost all RNGs. Some of them, or one RNG in particular, does not require the cape. See, there it is again. I'm pretty sure it has to do with the X coordinate that you're standing on when you phase through the block. So I'm gonna switch to cape earlier this time because there's a cooldown from when you item to the cape to when you're able to actually start using it. So there we go. I got all 6 double spins in against Ganon, and that's enough to start phase 3. And then I push the Samaria block north so that as soon as Ganon destroys the floor, then the Samaria block will be off screen, and that'll just eliminate a bit of lag. I could also have pushed the Samaria block into Ganon if that was convenient. But yeah, that's how you get the 2+1 Master Sword fight. So I want to show you a little bit about the variations that can happen because of the RNG, where your setup positions need to be, and also how you can get the 1-cycle phase 2 without the use of the cape. Okay, so I just want to show off the bottom right RNG, what you do here. You'll notice a consistent theme. I always set up on the top right of where Ganon is for this second cycle of phase 1. And that's just the most consistent spot I found to get all the 3 double spins in you need on this cycle, as well as avoiding the trident. So I think I charged my sword maybe a bit too late there, but this RNG is a little bit more forgiving. Yeah, and then it's just the same idea here as the other warp pattern. You just want to set up your Samaria block and get as many spins as you can. And remember to item to the cape early. Alright, so I'm going to show off here the far right RNG. I've already started my sword slash, and I'm going to try to get into position here. And I just want to show you what happens if I go to the wrong place. So if I kind of go directly to where I need to be. Let's see here. I'm doing a bad job demonstrating this in the bad way, but you can see that his trident, it kind of jukes a little bit. It doesn't go straight back to his hand. And I'm having problems demonstrating the too fast way, but just know that it's possible for him to catch the trident earlier than you want him to. And I think the reason he's not catching it early is because I've already set it up good from where I was before. Usually how you fail this is, you're here with the Samaria block early, and then if you go down first and then to get into position, or you go down and then diagonal to try to cut the corner to get in position, then he'll catch the trident early. So what you want to do is go right, and then you want to kind of move to the right to make the trident move a little bit further to the right along with you, so it takes longer for it to get back into his hand. And this is really important for this RNG because Ganon warps so far away from where he does in other patterns. This is the farthest away you have to travel in order to get into position with the setup I've shown you. So now this is really convenient because I wanted to show you this particular RNG for phase 2 as well. I've gotten in the 3 double spins, I believe. Now I just need to get in another one in order to start phase 2. And this particular spot that he's warped to is a very, very easy spot to get a 1-cycle phase 2. So let me just show you how that's done. You just stand in the corner and don't have to press any other inputs. You want to be fast with your sword, of course, and this is the one that doesn't require the cape, necessarily. So I was slow enough that it did require the cape there. I don't know if I can get it now, because my save state might have been too late in the pattern. Maybe if I'm really fast on my sword spins. Yeah, I don't think I can get it. Let me just try again. There it is. So you can see what I had to do is I had to kind of move to the left before immediately releasing my sword spin so that I can dodge the first fire bat. And then as I'm still moving to the left, release my sword spin. You end up colliding with a fire bat like almost all of the time at the end of it, but it'll be after you've hit him twice. So you'll have ended the second phase in a single cycle without using the cape. This is a strat that you might see in low percent if Ganon happens to warp to the correct location, but that warp is not controllable, so it's not consistent, this capeless strat. Also, even when I failed it earlier, it's good to know that as a backup strat, I could have popped the cape on. So if I can tell that I'm too slow to dodge the fire bat, I can pop the cape on and then just do another double like I did before, although that was way too slow to get it, apparently. So I promised I'd show you here what would happen if you messed up the 2-in-1 Master Sword Samaria fight. And actually, you can see here that I don't have my sword fully charged, or you might be able to tell here. So I'm going to clear this text box a little bit differently than you've seen me clear it before. But anyway, what happens if you don't get the 2-cycle phase 1? Is it still possible to get the 1-cycle phase 2? And the answer is yes, using the same idea. You need to be... it works slightly differently, but it's the same basic concept. So let's see if I can mess up the fight here. Okay, so I'm going to try to be intentionally slow. So now I'm too slow to get in my next set of spins. So I'm going to get in 2 doubles here, but it's not going to be fast enough to end the phase. Also, if I had been like very slightly slow, I might decide to refrain from hitting him. Like, for instance, if I was so very slightly slow that I was still going to end the first phase in 2 cycles, but I knew that I wasn't going to have the time left to charge my sword to be ready to release a spin early enough for a 1-cycle phase 2, then I might also decide to delay the start of the next phase and rather get an additional phase 1 cycle in, because the phase 1 cycles are a lot shorter than a phase 2 cycle. So that can be another reason that you might want to delay here, other than just missing spins. So now he's going to be warping to a location that's south along the wall, and it's the same idea. Just know that as long as he doesn't get like a glitched trident, he's going to be facing upwards, which means that the fire bats are going to be in the bottom left corner. So I'm going to get into position here like this. So now I'm in a good position, and I just watch his head to see when I should start my spin. So now he's looking left, and I can probably safely start my spin now, but I'm just going to wait for like a couple of frames after I release this. So same basic idea as I showed you before. So we've made it through almost all the way through phase 3, and we're looking ahead to phase 4 with the Master Sword, but let's say we don't have the silver arrows. So we're looking at a Master Sword Silverless fight. The most basic thing to know is it's going to take 24 spins, and you can't get double spins. The time that you have to damage Ganon just is not long enough for you to get 2 spins in, or 2 hits in with a single spin during phase 4. So we do need like 24 individual spins. If we got all triple hits, that would take 8 different lightings of the torch, essentially. So with a full magic bar, that means that we can do 8 fire rod shots perfectly, and that is indeed the optimal low percent strat. Is you will have a full magic bar because you won't have done the Samaria cape strat that I showed you before. There's a lot more time save in doing triples with the fire rod. So you will have a full magic bar, and you might want to do it then. But before we even start with the torches, the torch business, what we want to try to do is get in an extra spin depending on where he warps. So here we go. He warped in the same location. That's optimal position. In this case, I'm able to get a spin hit onto phase 4 already before I even have to worry about lighting the torches. And in fact, this position is so optimal that I don't even need to use the fire rod to light the torch. Often, if you want to get that early spin hit in, you need to do a fire rod torch glitch. But in this case, I can use the lamp, which is a bit safer, both in terms of magic use and timing-wise. And I didn't light the torch in a good timing to get a triple in, but that's why you want to ideally get the a first spin on him before you light the torches, because you often cannot guarantee you're going to get a triple. That was a very difficult pattern. So I've gotten 1 hit, 2 hits, 3 hits. So I don't have a lot of magic left because on this particular save state, I have done the Master Sword Samaria cape strat, so I used quite a bit of magic, and I'm going to have to use a lamp to finish off the fight. So it is good to know that you can get triples in with a lamp, I think, as I showed you before. That pattern in particular was difficult because he was kind of far away, but it would have been possible, but not strictly necessary to get lamp. The lamp lights in. You could do, or to get triples with the lamp, rather. However, if you were doing a fire rod version of the strat, and let me just fill up my magic, then yeah, I would need to be absolutely perfect. Let's get the extra hit in here. Oh, I almost got in a triple in addition to the early hit, but it's fine. As long as I get the early hit in, I can do a 2 hits for this particular warp, and that was late, and now I've missed it. So if I was trying to do all fire rod, I would have already failed, and I missed another spin. So there's zero margin for error if you're trying to do the all fire rod strat. In randomizer, that doesn't matter so much because, in NMG, that doesn't matter so much because you will almost always have the lamp unless you're doing some really bizarre game mode. So you can always do like a backup strat of lighting the lamp and then getting triples in that way. But in randomizer, it is possible that you could be on the Ganon fight without the lamp. It's not logically possible in most game settings because you would need to sequence break in order to get to Ganon most of the time. But, if you're somebody who's comfortable with dark rooms, you might have gotten all the way to Ganon with only the fire rod, In which case, if you're doing a Master Sword Silverless no lamp strat, you just make sure that you don't miss a single Silverless spin. So here we are, obviously in randomizer, considering there's a Ganon hole in front of the doorway here, and that I don't have any sword whatsoever. I'm going to show off the hammer swordless fight, and I'm going to show it off a couple of different ways, just to start with the basic mechanics. The hardest part about this fight is the hitbox of the hammer. You can see I had to get like right up into his crotch in order to get that first hit in. So the first few hits are a little dicey. That was 5 hits, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 was not necessary. 12. Okay, so this is actually a really fortunate warp here for Ganon. Anytime he warps at a spot where there is one tile above him empty, so either if he warps top left or top right, then you can kind of wedge yourself in perfectly such that when you do the hammer, you're not going to be slid off in any direction. And here I'm just adjusting to try to get the right spot. And here it is. Here's the right spot. And then you can very easily get 12 hammer hits in. I might have messed it up because I got hit that first time. But let's see if I got all hits in. Yeah, I got all hits in here. So that was like a pretty optimal Ganon, hammer Ganon fight. I'm pretty sure that was a 2-in-1. Let me think about that. Is that really 2-in-1 or was that a... Yeah, that was a 2-in-1. So that was pretty optimal because of where he warps. But you're not always going to get that lucky. So let me just save and quit to reset here. I don't have save states because I am playing on, you know, a randomizer ROM here, not on the prac hack. And let's see if we get some less fortunate RNG. Okay, I missed the 5th hit. 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. Okay, 10 is kind of important. So here's the other really optimal position. And if I was good enough and I was actually counting, I could then, like, you know, dash through the fire bats or hookshot through. I'm not sure if I actually got the right number of hits there, but yeah, I kind of want to show you a less than optimal pattern. Okay, I can already tell he's warping to, yeah, you could kind of see him there maybe depending on the refresh rate of my screen, but he's just like a tile left to me, tile or two left to me. So this is not a good position for him to be in if we want to get a quick kill. I'm just going to show you what this looks like if I try to do this normally. So... Oop, I don't want to be on this side of him. So I think I've gotten 2 hits into him this phase. I could try to sneak a hit in here. The hitboxes can be pretty tight. And this hitbox is even worse for like sneaking in a hit without getting hit by these fire bats. So liberal use of the hook shot is good. And I'm gonna die here as I try to show off the normal way, because again, I don't practice this strat at all. Let's see if I can get some iframes. I should be able to get 2 hammer hits in before I need to hook again. That was very close. So I'm not sure if that was it, but that was maybe like a 3 cycle, if it was it. Yeah, that was a 3 cycle. But we can actually do better than that even in these non-optimal RNGs. And guess how? That's right, the Ganon Samaria. So let's see if I can get a non-optimal RNG again to show you. Okay, I can tell he's warping to a non-optimal spot. He's going to warp like pretty much right on top of me, so I'm going to move. And I want to be on the right side of him, just like with the other Samaria strat. So I've gotten in all my 12 hammer hits. Now I lay the Samaria block down, and I can already tell, I think I'm on that bad pixel. I said X coordinate before, but I'm pretty sure it's Y coordinate. I might be fine here. Let's find out. Nine, 10. Okay, I did end up messing it up by pushing the block. Probably because I took too much recoil. But yeah, I almost had it there. But you get the idea. It's a little bit more difficult, I find, to do it with the hammer strat than with the Master Sword, but that could just be because I'm less practiced at it. But it's the same basic idea. You put a Samaria block down, and then you use the recoil to, you cancel the recoil, basically. One interesting thing, though, to know about the recoil as far as the hammer is concerned, in the Master Sword Samaria strat, you want to be doing like an input into the Samaria block. With the hammer strat, that's not necessary. You don't need to do it into the block. So I was facing left there, you know, to like hammer him, and it's fine to hold the left button during that fight, because that'll be enough to cancel my momentum on the Samaria block. So you can just hold left. The danger is in hugging Ganon, because you've just held left for too long. So you just really need to practice the timing. Unfortunately, you can't do this in the practice hack, since you need to hack the ROM to be able to damage Ganon with the hammer. This is not something you can do in the vanilla game. So what you need to do is play a swordless seed until you get to Ganon, and then save, you know, keep your save file, and then come back and practice using that, as I'm showing here. I do want to show you one more way, though, because it is not necessarily... you don't have to use the Samaria block in order to get a 2-in-1 hammer Ganon fight. There is another way that I want to show off as well. Or you don't have to get good RNG either. Okay, so I've gotten 11 hits into Ganon so far. He's warping just to the kind of top right of me, to where I am now. It is possible to still get a relatively quick kill without using cane strats if you're not comfortable with that, or they're too difficult. This is the way that I do it. So I need to get my 12 hit in. 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Item to the hookshot. I could hookshot into Ganon, or I could hookshot to the left. Either one works, but the hookshot into Ganon is a bit more tight. There I should have hookshotted into Ganon. I didn't have enough time to turn around. So that's 10 hits, and I'm getting just beaten up by these fire bats because I suck at dodging, apparently. There's 11, which I kind of snuck in before the fire bats could form their circle, and there's 12 when they're kind of expanded. So I could have gotten actually in 3 hammer hits in there. 1 before the fire bats formed their circle, and then 2 while the fire bats were expanding. So if all you can get in is 7 hammer hits during the first cycle of phase 2, then you can still 2-cycle phase 2 by getting inside the fire bat circle like that. Okay, so now we're heading into almost at phase 4 now, and I just want to talk about the idiosyncrasies of doing this with the hammer. It is possible to do the hammer Silverless strat, but your window is like 2 frames, I think it is, that you have to get the correct inputs. It's very small, however the window is, but I've heard it's not actually frame perfect. So for all intents and purposes, unless you're somebody crazy like Andy who has actually learned the Silverless hammer fight, you will need the silver arrows in order to finish off a swordless seed. But it is possible. You just have to hammer him like right as he's warping away. And I'm doing this unbuffered, so I'm probably not going to get it. But the way that you might see people do it is they will pause buffer, and what they're doing is they're watching the fire bat animation until it gets to a certain point. And I don't know what that point is. I think this is it, actually. And if I had been in a good alignment to actually hit Ganon there, I might have gotten the Silverless hit. I think I'm almost there. Yeah, it was that. So it's like when you see 4 fires and then the animation starts to change. Like here, I'll just show you, even though I can't get a hit in here. So there's like 4 fire things, and then right as the animation changes, right there, I'm pretty sure is the cue, is when you want to do your hammer strike. So if you want to do the Silverless fight, that's how you do it. But it does take several minutes, even for people who are incredibly good and very practiced at it, like Andy. So I don't recommend doing it. Just know that it is possible. So we're just about to finish the fight, but the fight's not over yet, because we still have to make it across this gap. And this seems like a ridiculous thing to talk about, but it does actually matter from a speedrunning perspective. So people have lost fights by falling in the pit, but also it's good to know how the fanfare works. So there is a period of this fanfare here that is important to the door opening. If I'm moving around, sometimes the fanfare won't start. So you want to get to where you need to be and then stay still. If I'm too high, the door might not open. So you can see the fanfare isn't even starting because my pixel is too high. I can wait for the fanfare to stop. And if I was just like not paying attention and ready to done, I might just be holding up and then fall in the pit. But the fanfare might continue, but the door's not going to open until the animation has played. And that's the animation of Link holding his sword up. So let me show you that. Now he's holding his sword up, and the fanfare will end, but the door doesn't open right away like I might expect. And that's because I started the animation of him holding the sword up later than I could have started it, since I was too high on the Y coordinate. So it actually is important, your position here where you end. You want to end like not too high. Basically, don't be on the tile that's right in front of the doorway, so that you get the sword held up at the earliest possible frame. Another funny thing is that you could be on a good Y coordinate, but if you're moving around, then the fanfare doesn't start sometimes. So be careful of that too. And then finally, if you really want to flirt with disaster, you could do a bow dash, interrupted by the fanfare. But it is possible to soft lock here, so you could screw yourself over at the finishing line by doing that. So that's everything that I can think to talk about the Ganon fight mechanics and the speed strats that you might be able to employ. I hope this was informative, and if you end up using any of these strats, particularly if you get some crazy 2-in-1 Master Sword Samaria strats down, or you get your first ever 1-in-1 with the Tempered Sword, I would love to see it. So send me a clip, DM it to me on Discord, or shoot a comment here on YouTube or whatever. Just I would love to see that if this is useful for anybody. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.